Namaste, namaskaram, vanakkam, namo namaha, Jai Ganesha. Please visit our website at classicalyoga.org. And there's a donate button there if you'd like to help us out. You may want to listen to our previous video on We Are a Hindu Family to fully understand why Hindus always worship Mahaganapati first. Ganapati should be every Hindu's best friend. And of course, all of our devatas, male and female, devas, devis, they have many, many names describing their different attributes. And Ganapati is found in the Rig Veda as Brihaspati. It's a beautiful word, Brihaspati. Bri is the root word for where we get Brahman. And remember, Brahman's not God, please. That's a word that should be thrown out of the Hindu lexicon. God is an anthropomorphic male, one creator being, and that's the Christian understanding. Brahman is a neuter term. It's the great it, information technology, the great it, the great samudra, the great cosmic computer, if you will. So Brihaspati, Bri is the root word for Brahman, and it means to expand. Brihaspati. Has means to laugh. And all of you who know Ganapati have some experience with Ganapati, the feeling of Ganapati, whether it's just a feeling or an intimate inner experience, and we'll get into the powerful symbolism. Ganesha always brings out a sense of jovialness, of joy, laughter, happiness, bringing us together as a Hindu family. Hopefully, we're striving for it. So Brihaspati, the great expansive, laughing deity. Brihaspati. Wow. And he's also considered the male deity of speech. And of course, we give equal time for Ma Saraswati is the female deity of speech. Vach or Vak. That's why you'll often see Ganapati and Saraswati together in a poster picture, for example, along with Ma Lakshmi. So remember, Ganesha is the foundation for Hinduism, and we always worship Ganesha first. And why? I had a satsang once with a group of Hindus, and most of them were doctors. And so I remember one of them saying, "Oh, Swami, we know this about Ganesha. Can you teach us something?" This guy wanted like New Ages. He wanted some chakras or kundalini or some intense experiences. And so I asked him, well, why do we worship Ganesha? Well, Swami, we know we've been taught this from, yeah, but why? Right? Well, everybody knows you, but why? Everybody started laughing because he really didn't know why. So we should know why we beseech Mahaganapati first. And again, we can look at these deities in Hinduism just as the artwork. That's great. That elevates your consciousness. And the powerful symbolism. Wow. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Great teaching wisdom in all of our devatas. And you may have an intimate inner connection. So we worship Mahaganapati first because look at his form. He is animal, human, and divine. This is who we are. We're animal, belly down, human. That's why we do this, right? Make the heart, whatever it is, the heart symbol at the heart. And we are divine, the divine head, right? We are animal, human, and the Atmana. That's why we say Tattvamasi, thou art that. Aham Brahmasmi, Jyoti Shakti Ananda Shanti, love, light, and energy. Om, this are we, with the emotions, mind, and body. Deha Mana Bhavaha. This is the essence of Hindu Dharma. We are the Atmana, which is Satchidananda, the pure experience of love and light and energy. A reality, not a fantasy, not just a theory, but a reality. So Ganesha is symbolic or synonymous with the primal sound. And sound, scientifically, is the first emanation of creation, the Big Bang. Om, the primal sound. Ah, oo, You see it written om, that's simply because of the way it sounds, but it's really the Sanskrit word ah, oo, or in English aum. And we find this fully described in the Mandukya Upanishad, the very short Upanishad, the frog scripture. Wow. Again, we see this divinity flowing through all things, and the rishis had a great sense of humor. So the frog scripture because the frog epitomizes focus, concentration, being able to sit silently for hours and hours upon end. I remember once taking a walk, and at the beginning of the walk, there was a little pond there with a frog sitting there. Okay, so it took about an hour or two walk. Came back and he was still there. Hadn't moved. Sitting in silence, right? Waiting for prey, obviously, so he could grab that fly that came by. Powerful symbolism there for being content to just sit and wait. Patience is a virtue. Truly, it is. So in this frog scripture, we associate the Om with the 4 points of contact that the frog makes on the ground. And why 4? I thought it was A, U, But yeah, the A, U, among other things, past, present, future, etc., is the animal nature, human nature, divine nature. Vaishvanara, Tejasya, Prajna. A, U. And when you chant it, this is the beauty of it. When you chant it, you're taking yourself through, if you will, a mini evolutionary cycle as you go ah, ooh, you can feel it there. And the your head vibrates. Ah, ooh, or om. You can pronounce it om or om. But it takes your awareness from the belly up, and then you circle around, right? Because life is a circle, right? We're not monotheists. That's linear thinking. It's a circle. So, what's the 4th part? Aha. That's turiya. That's the silence in between. When you take a breath, in between the chants, the take a breath. Omkaram bindu samyuktam nityam dhyayanti yoginaha kamara moksharam chaiva omkaraya namo namaha. This primal sound, this omkaram, which you can hear in the depths of silence. That's why yogis stereotypically go into a cave. You know, that deafening silence. It almost hurts your ears sometimes when you get in a place that is so devoid of outer sound. Go into a cave sometime. Go into caverns. Or just get up early in the morning, 2, 3 in the morning. Listen for that powerful sound of silence, that omkaram, which has been repeated for eons of time by youthful yogis, and brings about the release from an over-attachment to the things of the world. Omkaram bindu samyuktam nityam dhyayanti yoginaha kamadam moksharam chaiva omkaraya namo namaha. Powerful mantra. So Ganesha represents, because animal, human, divine, this primal sound, the first sound, first emanation of creation, and the silence in between, turiya. Vaishvanara tejasya prajna turiya, mandukya. And also, we know the story of Ganesha's birth, which we'll get into in a moment, but he was created off the mud of his Mataji Parvati. So he's earth, earthy. This is primal ground, Bhumi Mata. We're here on Mother Earth. So we can clearly see why this is primal. This is first. And he's also associated with the first chakra, which is the earth chakra, the anal region. The chakras are something that we all have inside of all of us. It's not certainly not some new age silliness, right? Or theory. It's the actual reality of what's inside of us. And maybe sometime we'll have a video on that as we go into each of the 7 chakras. Yogis actually look at 9, and we look at 12 different aspects of each of the chakras. So I don't know if we'll do this one actually. This is where you need to keep things a little more secret and just between you and your guru. So the first chakra is the earth element, obviously, and it's also associated with the qualities of elimination, duh, knowing what to get rid of. That's Ganesha's gata, elimination and memory. And each chakra is associated with 7-year cycles in our life. When they become preeminent, though we want to have them activated, they do become preeminent in 7-year cycles. So think about it. From 0 to 7, we learn an entire language or two just through osmosis, because that first chakra is spinning spinning very actively. Not wildly. We don't want them to be out of control. We don't want them to spin in reverse. That's the worst thing. So it's about memory. And what a beautiful understanding of the elephant who never forgets, right? So memory, and obviously this is primal to being a human and to being a Hindu. Never forget who you are, Tattvamasi. Never forget Ganapati. You know, I've always found over the years that those individuals and groups that don't put any emphasis or very little on Ganapati, they all got some problems, serious problems, right? We want to start with a good foundation from which we rise. Obviously, this is life. I mean, we start with our schooling. We want to build a good foundation. When you build a house, a good solid foundation. I mean, you could have beautiful adornments above, but if the foundation is weak, crumbles. I like the analogy of a rocket, right? Like Cape Canaveral when the rockets blast off. What we don't look at or focus on is the foundation, but that's all important to get that rocket off the ground and into outer space or inner space. Right? So that's a deep, deep foundation there. So the more time we spend in preparation and foundational work, wow, the better. And everybody knows this. I mean, it should be clear. That's why it's very puzzling when people are accepting, especially all you Hindus out there, who are accepting these so-called 200-hour certified professional authoritative yoga teachers. Come on, folks. What can you do in 200 hours? That's absolutely nothing. And it's insulting to those who spend decades in preparation. So, clearly why Ganesha is first, the primal sound, the first emanation of creation. The first chakra, the earth element, the profound development of a memory, smriti. This is one of the signs of samadhi. Shraddha, virya, smriti, samadhi, prajna. That's one of the advanced stages of samadhi in the Yoga Sutras of the Saiva Hindu Guru Patanjali, which too have been so distorted beyond recognition. We've done some podcasts on that before. You can search through our podcast and learn more about the truth of the Yoga Sutras and how they've been distorted. So, we clearly see why Mahaganapati is first. And notice in the back of here, we have, this is Balaganapati. This is a beautiful tapestry that one of our devotees, Amulya Saraswati, brought when she did her yatra to India, to South India. And she bought this beautiful Balaganapati. So there's Balaganapati, right? Notice he only has 2 arms. Later he gets 2 more, right? So we know this story of Balaganapati, the creation of Ganapati, off the mud of his mother, Parvati. So Mother Parvati took her morning bath, scraped the mud off of her form, formed her a son that she could adore, and stationed the boy outside of her door. Well, home came Shiva to visit his wife. The divine young boy showed off his might. Shiva was vexed and cut off his head. Whoa. So they had to look for the first animal that was dead, an elephant they found under a tree, and they took his head. Voila! Ganapati. This is the story of Ganesha's birth, celebrated each year with much mirth. So we join in this creation story by making our clay or mud Ganeshas, worshipping in the home for a week. And then we do Visarjana. We put them in a body of water, right? Like ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That's a good one for people who don't understand the images in Hinduism. They call us idol worshippers in a very negative sense, right? So here we let the image go back into the water. And come on, we all have symbols, we all have our images. And as one Swami once said when he was being criticized for being an idol worshiper, he said, no, we're very vigorous worshipers. Yeah, important. What's one person's idol, right, is another person's meaningful symbol, right? We all have symbols. Come on, we all do this. Look at a cross with a man hanging on it. Imagine somebody who's never ever seen that before. They walk into a building, they see a cross with a man hanging on it. They say, whoa, what's happening here? Am I next? Am I going to be sacrificed? They don't understand the symbolism there, right? So the symbolism is all important. So when we look at Mahaganapati, and it was not a coincidence, I think, that they chose in the symbolism to put an elephant head there, because elephants work very well with humans. They were the heavy equipment, so to speak, that helped build India. So we have an elephant head on a human body. And there's a profound wisdom to this story because it's kind of ghastly to some people. Shiva cuts off his head. Well, what's the symbolism there, right? The symbolism that this young boy, Balaganapati, when he had his warrior spirit, and we all have it when we're young, hopefully, and then we kind of lose it sometimes, but we want to regain that youthful, loving warrior spirit again. So he was going to protect his Mataji even in the face of Mahadeva Shiva. Imagine that, right? Young boy facing Mahadev Shiva, and he just stood up, and he lost his head. So that's telling all of us that when we have some truths in life, when we have some principles, right, we need to stand up for them. And we cannot expect to always win in life. We're going to lose. We're going to lose big sometimes. In this case, he lost his head. So he lost really big. So sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. I mean, this is, if we don't play the game, though, right, then we're just going to wimp out, if you will. We're just going to be cowards. We got to play the game. We got to expect to lose sometimes and lose big. But if we stick to our values, our truths, in the end, everything will turn out all right. And in this story, it does, because we forever now have this, probably one of the most popular Hindu deities around the world. People know Ganesha is so vivid. So if you stand up for the truth, eventually it'll work out. And again, we understand reincarnation, so it may not work out right away. Right? Karma has different timetables depending. Some things happen very quickly. Right? Drink poison, die. Right? Smoke cigarettes, it might take 30, 40 years before it kills you. So there's different timing to karma. So we have this beautiful image now of the animal, human, and divine being, which we too are. So it reminds us when we look at Ganapati that we're animal, human, and divine. But then we look at a later picture, and I'll hold one up here as we go through the symbolism of Mahaganapati. So I remember when I was a young brahmachari, just really getting into this, right? Because obviously I was born in the West, and my parents never indoctrinated me into any religion at all. They were very turned off by Christian fundamentalism, so I just did my own searching, and then as a young person was very enamored by Hindu Dharma, and that became my life's work. But I remember a Swami early on holding up a picture. He said, "You want to see my best friend?" And he said, "Don't I have funny looking friends?" Huh? So let's get a picture of Ganapati here. Okay, putting our deities first. And remember, we have to be careful when in the religious realm, right? And especially as Hindus, we want to be very careful that we don't put too much focus on our own personal picture, personality, and price tag. That's where many groups often go wrong. We want to more focus on people practicing principles. And, I mean, it's been a long wait before I decided to do some of these videos. So please, forgive me for getting out there as a personality. Try to keep it in balance. Because I love a quote by a great mystic from Sri Lanka, Yoga Swami, who, sadly, some of his teachings have been very distorted by some of his quote-unquote followers, right? But he said a beautiful thing. He said, attracting people to yourself is another self-deluding activity. Wow. Think about that, folks. All of us that are out there as pundits, pujaris, swamis. So, put our deities first. Huh? So look at Ganapati. This is a classic picture of Ganapati. So obviously we have the animal, human, divine figure there because he's a devata. Huh? And look at him sitting on a lotus flower. Sometimes you'll see our deities sitting or standing on lotus flowers. There's a beautiful symbolism there. Do some of you remember the old Kung Fu series? When the final test was if David Carradine, Kung Fu, he could, I forget his name, it might come to me in a minute, but his final test was to be able to walk on the rice paper without leaving a mark. So it's kind of like, think of a, especially Ganesha, a heavy deity, being able to sit on a lotus flower. Wow. Moving through the world in kind of a transparent way. Right? Being careful of our footprint that we leave on the earth, right? Our carbon footprint. So if we look at Ganesha, the prominent thing, obviously, well, he's got his big belly, which stands for contentment. That's Santoshima, right? It doesn't mean to get overweight. It means to seek contentment in life rather than being a malcontent. But the striking thing is his elephant head. And again, elephants work very well with human beings. And those of you that have been to some of the major mandirs in India, you know they have a full-grown elephant right outside that blesses you, puts his trunk on your head, makes you bow. You can't stand up like a proud ego. You must bow humbly. And with the kalasam that he's holding there, he may squirt some water on you, bathing you, the abhishekam, purity, water. But look at nature's creation of that elephant trunk. It can do three things. It's so strong that it can rip a tree right out of the ground. Wow. And yet it's flexible like a snake. And the tip is so sensitive it can pick a coin right off the ground. So what a symbolic lesson for us in life. To learn to be strong and flexible and sensitive in our body, mind, and emotion. There's a meditation right there. Strong, flexible, and sensitive physically, mentally, and emotionally. And then he's holding the laddus, and sometimes in some of the images, the murtis, his trunk will go right to the laddu. So it's a reminder that if we're strong, flexible, and sensitive, life will be sweet. Because think of the opposite. If we're weak, inflexible, insensitive, life will be sour for us and those around us. Now, he has one broken tusk. And you know the story where he was taking dictation for sage Vasya. And remember, he wrote down the Mahabharata. And his pen broke. So he immediately broke his tusk and used it as a stylus to continue writing. So what this represents is a sacrifice. I mean, how many of us are willing to sacrifice at that kind of a level, right? Without even a thought, right? For his own vanity at all. Just broke his tusk off because they're very prized parts of an elephant, right? So he broke his tusk and continued writing, right? To the work at hand. There's a greater work. And then we look at his big ears, right? That reminds us to listen to words of wisdom. Gajikanikaya, Suniye, listen up, folks. Listen to the outer wisdom and the wisdom that comes from within. Again, as Yoga Swami used to say, open the book within, study that book. The outer books are okay, but study the inner book as well. And then look, he has the Gata and the Pasa, which again is a reminder to us to know in life what to get rid of and what to hold on to. Get rid of God and caste Hindus. That's not part of our lexicon. Hold on to the reality of yoga. Don't give it away. Don't turn it into an exercise business and let other people do that. Takes us a long time, sadly. So we have a hard time working together. Again, listen to our video or watch our video on a Hindu family. We have a hard time working together sometimes, and we let things go. We have this koi batni attitude or this chaltahe attitude. It's somebody else's business, or who cares, or it's not my business. And we let things go for decades and decades and decades. Generations live and die under delusions, like the swastika, which we're just finding out now that Hitler never even used that word. Oh, boy. Use Use Conan did a great job with this one. Thank you for that. But we need to nip things in the bud. Handle problems when they're small problems. Don't let them become so out of hand. Right? Like the yoga today, I mean, it's out of hand now with all these so-called certified yoga teachers. So know in life what to get rid of. That takes strength and know what to hold on to. And then he has his one hand in Abhyam Mudra. And often you'll see with deities they'll have Varada. Abhya Varada means everything's okay if you do the right thing. It's not okay if we don't do the right thing. Everything's okay. Like people say today, it's all good. Well, it's all good until it isn't. So Abhya Varada. And then look, he sits often with one foot down, one foot up. Great teaching tool here. Reminding us to seek a balanced life, keep one foot into the world, Prakriti, the other foot up into Purusha. This is a good balance. If you keep both feet in the world, you're going to get stressed out. And if you keep both feet up, when you need to be responsible in the world, you're being irresponsible. There will come a time, or times in your life, when you can keep both feet up. And certainly when you reach the sannyas stage, if you do, 72 on up, then you'll be able to keep both feet up and you'll be able to more or less renounce the outer world. But Ganesha is teaching us this foundational balance and wisdom. Keep one foot in the world, one foot in the spirit. So look at that. You look at Ganesha, and right away you're learning all of these powerful lessons of life in one quick look at a picture. That we're animal, human, divine. Be strong, flexible, and sensitive, and life is sweet. Everything's okay if you do the right thing. Know what to get rid of, know what to hold on to. Listen to words of wisdom. Seek contentment. Keep one foot in the world, one foot in the spirit. And look at little Mushika. See this divinity that flows through all things, from the greatest to the smallest. And this is the beauty of Mahaganapati. Here's this great, great deity that his best friend is a little mouse. Think of when we're very arrogant, when we're teens perhaps, and we have peer groups, right? And we think we're with the in crowd and we don't want to associate with other kinds of people. But here's Mahaganapati. He's no problem associating with the little mouse, Mushika. And look at little Mushika. I mean, he's the epitome of all the yogas. Because mice work, work, work. That's karma yoga. And look, he's holding the laddu. He's not just eating it. He's praying. He's doing his bhakti yoga. And he's forever concentrating or focusing on Mahaganapati, Raja Yoga. And he gets to live forever with Mahaganapati. That's the enlightened state of being, Karma Bhakti Raja Jnana. So, this is why we beseech Mahaganapati first. And we should look at him as our great psychiatrist. I remember as a young monk, I actually got to be at the Flushing Mandir, which was the first Orthodox Mandir in America. And it, quote unquote, happens to be a Ganesh Mandir. Beautiful Ganesh Murti there. It's beautiful black granite. They say it's one of the most beautiful carvings since the Chola Empire. I happened to be there in the 70s when it was just opening up. And I remember watching sometimes around the noon hour, some of the professionals would come in, right, the doctors, etc., on their lunch hour. And all they would do is do pradakshina, just go round and round, because the Garbhagraha is right in the middle, and you can go round and around it. If we can't do that, we just turn around, right? And so we're unwinding negative karmas, and so they would just go round and round and round and round and round, and then bow, pradakshina, and then they would go back to work. And I asked one of them one day, and he said, well, I come here because Ganesha is my psychiatrist, and I take all my problems, I leave it at his feet, and then I go off and I feel refreshed and brand new to face the rest of my day. So, I know for some of you psychiatrists out there, devout Hindus don't really need that. They go right to Mahaganapati. They go to the Devatas. And again, with the symbolism, it's clear. And now there's another wonderful understanding of Ganesha's 5 Shaktis, Panch Shaktis. Like concentric circles, when you drop a pebble in the water, it forms concentric circles from the center one on out. So they go in order, as everything does, really. Pade, pade. Walk behind an elephant. Pade, pade. Let them lead the way. Clear the path. And you just follow step by step by step. Pade, pade, pade. Or sutra by sutra, thread by thread. So, harmony with family, number one. Harmony with friends. Harmony in the business world. Love of culture. And love of the divine. The 5 Shaktis. And this is at the modern festival of Panchaganapati, at the quote-unquote holiday season, or Christmas time, if you remember. We don't celebrate Christmas. That's for Christians. We have a Panchaganapati celebration where the 5 Shaktis come into play, where we seek to have harmony with our families, our friends, business associates, love of culture, love of the divine. Om Vakrunam Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Gurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada Mushika Vahana Bodakahasta Chamara Karana Vilabita Sutra Vamana Rupa Maheshwara Putra Vigna Vinayaka Pada Namaskar Om Gam Ganapati Namo Nama Shri Siddhi Vinayaka Namo Nama Ashta Vinayaka Namo Nama Ganapati Bappa Muriya Mangalamurti Namo Nama Ganapati 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 Palayamam Ganapati Gunapati Gajapati Mamapati Varapati Surapati Palayamam Ganapati Bala Ganapati Natana Ganapati Gambiya Ganapati Vatavi Om. So let us remain as a united Hindu family, always beseeching Mahaganapati. Use that as your important foundation from which you rise and then safely come back to again. Om Jai Mahaganapati Om Jai Hindu Yoga Dharma. Om Namaste Namaskaram Vanakam Namo Namaha.